As with every year with the list season, I always like to go with the biggest surprises of that year, going through some albums that in my opinion were a huge surprise, and of course we're going to be doing it once again for the year 2020. I always feel like it's nice to focus list season on the positives, the highlights, the things that make us music lovers in the first place, and I feel like surprising albums are always just that extra special, you know, when you're just not expecting something to be great, you're just suddenly like, wow, okay, this was way better than I had anticipated. And I think that's a really nice feeling, especially if you do keep up with music or even any form of art, like films, for example. You weren't expecting a film to be good. It comes that, you know, you come out of the cinema and it's like, wow, it's fucking great. It's a nice feeling. I did used to do disappointed albums, and I even used to do overrated albums at one point, but I'm not going to do stuff like that anymore. I'm just going to focus on the things that I want to be positive about, because I think that's just more exciting in terms of list season, the best things to focus on. So here we go, 5 albums that were a huge surprise to me. I'm going to start with Bauer with Planets Mad. The surprising thing about this was just how hard it hit. I wasn't quite expecting every track to be an absolute slap in the face, and Bauer has been known in the past to put out big bangers. The album before this one actually was pretty good, and kind of underrated in the grander scheme of things, honestly, especially for this style of music. I feel like people need to go back to that, honestly. There are some great tracks on there, especially the MIA feature. MIA hasn't been particularly very good for quite a while, but that MIA feature on the Bauer album is insane. So of course, with me liking that album, it's not like this album being great was a huge surprise, but I just think it caught me off guard a little bit with how really hard-hitting some of these tracks are. Like the title track in particular just blows your socks off. It's insane how hard he goes here. And another surprising thing is to say that this man was a one-hit wonder meme guy with the Harlem Shake, to go, you know, like, I don't know how many years later it's been, probably like 8-9 years later now at this point, to drop an album as good as this. It's kind of surprising and weird that his career has taken this path. And I guess another good thing about this is if that you click this video for whatever reason, you weren't, you know, just found it, you weren't even subscribed to me, and you didn't even know Bauer had an album out this year. That's a win-win right there. That's a positive. So there you go. Next I want to mention Navy Blue, who is part of the slums abstract hip-hop scene that's been booming for the past few years, to be honest. It was already a thing before Earl Sweatshirt's Some Rap Songs, but I think that was the album that really gave this style of music a bit of a mainstream push. Not like mainstream or whatever, but with Earl being as well known as he is, he did kind of give this genre a new audience, and ever since then there's just been loads of rappers coming through the ranks in this style that are getting huge amounts of attention. Mike was obviously doing this for a while, but again, his most recent stuff seems to have gotten him way more attention than he was getting back in like 2016, 2017. While I loved Earl Sweatshirt's Some Rap Songs, and I've liked other things in the genre too, I just wasn't quite anticipating to enjoy this Navy Blue album as much as I ended up loving it, because there aren't that many albums in this style that I have ended up loving, really. And to add on top of that, with the general reception being pretty standard for this album, no one's really thinking it's that great. To be the one person that thinks it is that great is a nice little surprise. I wasn't quite thinking it was going to be as good as it was, but of course, here I am thinking it's pretty damn great. The car feature on this one is great, by the way. If you've not heard this album, you definitely need to check it out, especially considering how big of an audience Car has at this point. And the track 22, god damn, some great instrumentals on here. Yeah, this was a highlight for the year for me in hip hop. So it was a nice little surprise, and I do feel like it's kind of gotten a bit overlooked. Next I want to go with Eve Tumor for a slightly different reason than the other picks I've put on here so far. I guess I did like Safe in the Hands of Love quite a bit. It did grow off me though as time went on, I will say that. I don't think it's quite as impressive as it was when I first heard it, although there are some amazing tracks on there. But the surprise really was how Eve just went in a completely different direction. Like, this album is nothing like Safe in the Hands of Love, and yet Eve managed to sell it really damn well. The really over the top, like, ballad type tracks like Kerosene that really pull from like the 80s And a lot of these tracks pull from different eras and different genres, and it's just kind of weird to see that Eve went in this direction and pulled it off really well. This album might even be better than Safe in the Hands of Love, honestly. I do think it's produced better, at least, and the tracks have just a bit more memorability to them, honestly. Like, there are loads of tracks on here that I feel like I'll remember years down the line, whereas Safe in the Hands of Love doesn't really have that. Gospel for a New Century is an absolute anthem. Like, that track you can send to anyone and anyone will be all over that shit, because it is just such a great track. It came out right at the start of the year, and even at the end of the year I'm thinking to myself, this could easily be like a top 10 song of the year, top 5 maybe, I don't even know. I haven't put the list together yet, but that is a huge feat to have gone the entire course of the year, and there I am still thinking of it as a big song of the year. Even without that track, there's loads of good tracks on here that you should be listening to, because there's just so much to like, honestly. So yeah, I was impressed with this. I was impressed more for the fact that it did just take a completely different direction to what I think most of Yves Tumor fans were even expecting or anticipating, and yeah, he pulled it off. Next, I do want to mention Fortet, not for the fact that I didn't expect him to put out a great album this year, because he has so many great albums anyway at this point, but it was more for the fact that it's been quite a while since he really blew me away with a release. Although I do think New Energy, which came out in 2017, is a bit underrated. Not sure why people consider that one of his weaker ones, because it honestly isn't that bad at all. It's actually really quite good. But even still, it has been about a good 10 years since I came out of an album from him where I could truly say, yeah, I love this. What also surprises me with this is how lukewarm the reception was. People actually think this is one of his worst. Just like New Energy, when that came out, people really ain't feeling it that much, whereas this is great. Like, I'm surprised. If you're a Fortet fan, why would you not like this? So it surprises me for a number of reasons, but yeah, I can't believe the reception to this has not been overwhelmingly positive. I guess it's more accessible in places. The track Baby, for example, I guess taking that Ellie Goulding sample definitely takes his sound into a different place. But man, when Caribou does it, people love it. But what is there not to love when Fortet's doing it? It has a really fresh and like spring sort of time feeling to the album. It's just a beautiful listen from start to finish to me, honestly. And I like the way that he pulled from the previous stuff that he's been doing recently and kind of just refined it all in a really good way and just made it into one of his best albums in a good while. So yeah, that's why it's surprising to me, mostly for the reception to it, honestly, but also it has been a while since I think he's really hit the nail on the head with an album, and he really did it with this one. And now we're going to cap it off with five picks. I've mentioned 4 already. The final one, probably, which is ironic, not really a surprise to you if you're watching this video, but a surprise for me overall in this year, which we're going to go with Blade or Blady, and yeah, I guess I did a U-turn. I guess I got drained, as they say, as the cool kids say, as they love to tell me in every comment section that I've done for this artist, this man, Blade. They love to ratio me, but this time around with 333, no, it didn't happen, because somehow I came out of it thinking it was actually really good. I think from what I could tell, his vocals were slightly different this time around. They weren't quite as grating on the ears. He was actually incorporating some really good melodies with what he was doing, whereas his previous stuff, often I couldn't really sit through the way everything was just slathered in auto-tune, and just all the time it sounded awful to me. This time around it was nowhere near as grating though. Like this album, I feel like he managed to refine it in a way that didn't overbear or overshadow everything else that was going on. Like the melodies and the tracks, the instrumentals were able to shine through, and also his vocals were being melded with the instrumentals in a really nice way. Because I did go back to some of the older tracks from albums that I didn't like at all, and I could tell that there was something not quite right with the way that the vocals and the instrumentals were pairing up. Whereas this album here, it didn't have that problem ever, really. I mean, I just never once noticed it, and it was working pretty much the entire time, which I thought was a real huge surprise for what I usually expect from Blade. And I know a lot of people won't even agree anyway, because that's why he has such a big following, of course. But for me, this was just a huge surprise because I just wasn't expecting it. And I think he's got an album dropping pretty soon as well. In fact, maybe even by the time this video's out, it might have already come out. I can't remember the date it's coming out, but I've heard a few singles from it. It looks like it's going to be a collaboration release, and they sound pretty fresh, honestly. He's riding over beats that he's never done before, so I'm pretty excited for whatever he's going to do next, because I think that one could even possibly be better than this album here. Yeah, that's how it happened. Somehow ended up liking a Blade album in 2020, and of course that is the 5 biggest surprises for me in the year of 2020. Would love to hear what you think in the comments. What are your biggest surprises? What do you think of the 5 picks I gave you here? What do you think of, do you think they're even any good? Do you think they're bad? Let me know what you think in the comments. That would be great. And that's it. More lists coming soon. Obviously, it is December. Lots of cool lists on the way. Give me some suggestions on what I should do as well, what lists I should make. That would be great. Thank you for watching. Do have a good day, and goodbye. Goodbye.